What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. It's episode 380, and it is May 3rd, 2023. Tomorrow, May the 4th, be with you. I had to do it. I'm sorry. But I'm pumped about today's show. We're bringing in a recently crowned U.S. Open champion at 65 kilograms. It's Nick Lee, two-time NCAA champion at Penn State. Excited to have him on the show. Nick, thanks for joining us today, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Yeah, a lot of things to talk about. Obviously, the success over the weekend, but, really want to just kind of dig in a little bit about your background in the sport and how you got to this point, and really want to know, like, how did you get into wrestling? How old were you? And, well, we can go. You can go on if you want, but how'd you get
Yeah.
hooked? Were you
So
good from the beginning?
I'm
Yeah.
from a town called Evansville, Indiana,
Yep.
and I went to a very small elementary school called Corpus Christi, a little Catholic school, and it's a feeder school into a high school called Mater Dei. And Mater Dei has kind of a culture built around wrestling, and wrestling is one of the only sports you can do there before second grade. And so, everybody in town wrestled. And so my kindergarten year, I was uh, coming home and I had a flyer for wrestling. And so I went and I joined the wrestling team. And then the next year, my dad was deployed to Afghanistan. And our neighbor at the time was dating one of the high school wrestlers. And so that high school wrestler came over and once a week just kind of worked with us. And we kind of got hooked at that point. And then I've been doing it ever since. And I would really compare my high school's culture around wrestling to Penn State's. It's similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm from St. Louis. I'm familiar with Mater Dei, not like deeply
Yeah,
familiar, but I just knew that there was like this solid program that cranked
yeah.
out a bunch of great wrestlers. Man, your dad got deployed. I mean, sure we could spend a whole show talking about that, but
Oh yeah.
what was, we don't have to go deep into the weeds on this, but just what was that like getting into wrestling? Your dad being gone, and I mean that's a pretty open-ended question, but
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, any military family that's had someone in the family deployed knows, it's definitely, rough missing a parent from the home for however long, whether it's a few months or, um, uh, my dad was deployed for, I think like 16 to 18 months, something like that. I'm not positive. I was in first grade. So um, but whenever he got back, he was, really, really into the sport that we were into, obviously. And, he was very involved. He played football in college, didn't wrestle or anything like that. I was the first person in our family to wrestle. Definitely hard, but, that's something that, brings the family together and the community.
sure. All right, I guess back to the wrestling. What
Sure.
when you got into wrestling, were you kind of good right away? Did it take time? Did you kind of pick it up naturally?
I sucked really bad.
Really?
Um, I got better over time. I always worked pretty hard. We had a good work ethic, so I think that's what ended up doing the trick. But I was really really bad, and I didn't really care that much about it for a while either. And then as I got older, I started caring a little bit more. But um, I don't even know if I had any moves. I remember the first time I won our feeder league championship. I think I won the finals because I pushed the other guy's hands together for a full Nelson and I got a penalty point. And so that was my first feeder league championship that I can remember.
Okay. Well, I mean, however you got to win. Uh,
Yeah.
but so you're not very good at it. You don't really care about it. Although there's a culture within the community. Maybe that's what
Mhm.
kept you coming back, or what kept you coming back.
Well, I enjoyed it. It's what a lot of my friends did. So I think, the that's comes back to culture, right? My friends are doing it. And my dad was really into it as well. Both my brothers wrestled, and it was fun, right? We would go to practice, and we had one of those gyms where we had to roll out the mats and then roll them up after every practice every day. Um, and we played games and stuff, and it was enjoyable. And as you get older, you start to do it more, and then you start to say, okay, well, I'm doing this, so I might as well try to win, right? And then I ended up homeschooling for a little bit as well before high school, and we spent a little more time training at that time, and ended up doing the trick, I think. But yeah, just I really enjoyed it. It's what my friends did.
I think that's so important. Well, one, the culture, right? Like this
Hmm.
community culture into it, and then two, like building a love for the sport before trying to like get really good and win, right? Because like
Yeah,
once you build that foundation of love and passion for it, then it's like, okay, now let's start getting technical, and then it's like, okay, I'm ready to learn and get good. So it's really cool to hear that
yeah.
that's kind of how it is in that community. And I guess when was it when I guess you liked it the whole time, but when did you start to see success and start to get more wins than
Yeah.
losses?
I think I won my first state championship in the fifth or sixth grade. I'm not positive. And then, I started to hit the national scene a little bit in middle school. Excuse me. And then in high school, I only won one state championship in high school, but I think I really started to take off there. I won a few Fargo championships. I wrestled. I never did great in the Super 32 tournament. Also, Indiana has a weird rule where you can't wrestle in the Ironman. You can't wrestle in a few of those, big tournaments, which they need to change that rule immediately if it's still a rule. But um, I think in high school I started to hit the national scene, and we traveled around and went to train in different places to kind of get exposed to wrestling. And I'll be honest, I hardly watched college wrestling before I committed to Penn State. I had been to a national championship or two. For the finals, but I didn't watch much college wrestling. So the first national championships that I watched all the way through was after I committed to Penn State. I was like, all right, let me watch these guys. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Wh- When did you? So maybe you didn't watch college wrestling, but you obviously knew it was a thing.
Oh,
When
yeah.
did you know that? Hey, maybe, or even you start to think like, maybe I want to wrestle after high school. Is that something like,
Yeah.
in the community when you're at modern day or younger, or what? Well, it would have been high school, but would have been before high school or in high school when you thought I want to do this in college.
Yeah, I mean, it's always something that you look at when you're a very young wrestler, right? So coaches are always talking about, making sure you keep your grades up so you can get into a good college, maybe get a scholarship, something like that. So that's always something that's on the mind. But I started thinking seriously about it in high school. And then I think around my junior year, whenever you're allowed to start taking unofficial visits and they're allowed to contact you, then I was like, okay, now I need to actually start thinking about this. Where do I want to go? And then I didn't have to think for long. I committed to Penn State pretty early.
Was it like you saw what was happening and what the success they were having? I was like, that's where I want to go, or was it a more like, you're feeling calls from all these
Yeah.
different schools and maybe even taking visits and that one stuck out.
Yeah. I mean, I, for my personal decision, I kind of made I had a little bit of a inner dialogue, and that kind of went like, well, if I'm gonna wrestle in college, I got to decide: am I gonna go wrestle in college to win, or am I going, primarily for my college degree, and wrestling is gonna kind of be a side thing. And I decided that, well, if I'm gonna go wrestle in college, I want to be as good as I can be, and it seems like Penn State is the place to do that. And I remember, whenever I talked to Coach Kelly, he's like, well, you want to come here, we want you to be a national champion. And if you want to be a national championship or a national champion, then you come to Penn State. And so I kind of made that decision, and um, there was really nowhere else that I considered after that.
Were were you prior maybe to that conversation with Kale? Were you can say specifics or not, but were you like
Sure.
thinking this, that, the other, or maybe leaving the
Yeah.
options wide open?
Sure. Yeah. I won't mention any specific schools, but I definitely had, relationships with other college coaches, and all of them great. There's a lot of good people in wrestling, thankfully. And I had considered other schools, but kind of after my conversations with Coach Kale, I was pretty set. I remember I went um this was before I committed, but in my mind, I had already kind of committed. I had talked to Kale, and I had walked around the campus, and I came home, and I bought these blue and white shoes. And I remember one of my friends asked me out there, like, was, oh, you know where you're committing to college yet? And I was like, no, I haven't decided. And my brother Joe was like, look at his shoes. He knows where he's going. So
Was there like an aha moment, whether it was something Kale said or something that just clicked in your head, was like, this is the spot?
yeah, I mean, obviously they had success, and then Kale specifically, as everyone knows, has a very unique personality.
Hmm.
Um, he's not someone that I felt like was, begging me to come to school there. It was just kind of a mutual understanding of, if you want to win and you want to be the best you can be, then this is the place to be to do that. And so, he was very confident in that. And, you know, being Kale Sanderson, I was like, okay, well, I think this guy knows what he's talking about. So I'm in.
Sure. And you know, like he has a pretty unique personality.
Yeah,
Describe Kale's personality.
sure. Yeah. I mean, everyone that talks to him is going to have, similar takeaway, maybe a little bit different, but I think for wrestlers that wrestle with him, he has a way of making sure that you understand that, he's on your team, right? Yes, he's a head coach and an authority figure, but he's also your teammate, and he wants to see you succeed in wrestling and everything else. And I would say our conversations are maybe less than half wrestling, right? We talk about all kinds of things. And he's a guy that's ultra competitive, obviously. And if there was anything that I don't like about him, it's that he's too competitive in dodgeball and always throws at me, even though we're on the same team. Um, yeah, he's an ultra competitive guy. And I think that he's one of those people where you get that in every conversation you're having with them. And kind of the closer bond you form with Coach Kale, the more you kind of get a peek into, his personality. He is ultra competitive, but he also, is one of the only people on earth that will do the right thing at all costs. Right. So that's, it's the kind of character that you want your sons to emulate. And yeah, I don't want to wrestle for anyone else, really.
Yeah, fair. I mean, the record speaks for itself, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so when you got to Penn State, compare, you know, modern day. You talked about this community
Sure.
and this, you know, it's a powerhouse with Penn State and the similarities and differences.
Sure. Well, I think to start would be the community that kind of rallies around wrestling, right? So you have ultra dedicated fans that are going to come, you know, rain or shine. And people they're very involved. They show up to everything, whether it's if modern day fans, Penn State fans, if they could go to every practice, they would, right? Um, and they can't, but they would if they could. And so that dedication to the program is number one. Um, and then number two, I think a tradition of excellence, right? And for Penn State, it's more of a recent tradition of excellence under Coach Kale that kind of started before I got there, but it's um, continuing, obviously. And then modern day, we had a little bit of a dry spell before I got into high school, but I mean, I think it was under Coach Gable. It was something like 13 state championships in a row. I mean, pretty dominant. And so you have that tradition of excellence at both schools, and then a community that really buys into the message of the program. And modern day being a Catholic school, part of that message was a Christian message. And so you had people that share common values and common goals that come together to achieve great things. And so it's a pleasure and an honor to be part of each of those communities. So hopefully I'm doing them justice.
Sure. Any differences you can think of between the two?
um sure, modern day is a small school. I think maybe around 500 kids. I'm sure they're bigger now than whenever I was there. Penn State's a very big university. So with Penn State, there's a lot more people involved. And then also, I think whenever you look at kind of the Midwest, I don't think people think of wrestling, right? They think of probably basketball. Then at Penn State and in Pennsylvania, man, this is a wrestling hotbed, as they say. I mean, it's crazy, how good some of these kids are. So I think at Penn State you have, both wrestling communities, but the foundations of Penn State wrestling are, very deep in experience versus with modern day, it's more of kind of a raw dedication, if that makes sense.
Sure. Uh, you said you won one state title. How in
Yeah.
high school? How did you do like as a freshman?
Sure. As a freshman, so this will be interesting for people listening. As a freshman, for Indiana, you have a blind draw, and so as a freshman, I was ranked number two going into, um, or I guess I was the second favorite. There's no rankings
Yeah.
from top to bottom, but I would say I was the second best guy in the weight class behind Mr. Stevan Micic. So he was in the bracket. He beat me in the semifinals. So I wrestled back to third, and then my junior year, I had Chad Red in the finals. And so I lost to him in the finals that year. So two guys that I'd never I only wrestled Chad in college, but two guys that were in my weight class in college and have been on the scene since are guys that I lost to in high school, and I think those are my only losses in Indiana in high school. So a little bit of an interesting road. I won more Fargo championships than I did state championships.
That's pretty wild. So what I was getting is you're pretty credentialed, pretty good as coming in as a freshman in high school, and I'm sure you knew that
Yeah,
and thought probably goal was to win a state title. Where was your
yeah,
head at nationally as a freshman at Penn State? Where you, I mean, sure, I want to win a national title, but was it a thing where you're
yeah,
like, I think I can, or I believe I can, or I believe I'm gonna?
yeah.
Confidence wise, where were you
So
at?
it's interesting. I never really put much thought into like my own personal like chances or my own personal ability. I was always kind of like in the context of what the team's doing. And my freshman year, let me go through some of the guys we had. Above me, we had Zane Rutherford, Jason Knopf, Vincenzo Joseph, Mark Hall, um, Anthony Cassar, Bo Nickel. Almost forgot him.
I think those are all national
But
champs. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like I'm on this team with all these guys, and I'm like, dude, I'm like the worst guy on this team. So so how good am I going to do? But so it was always kind of an expectation of excellence, and an expectation to win. And so whether I was wrestling the best guy in the country or I was wrestling, um, the starter for, one of the lower level teams, I was going to go out there and try to win, right? And so coming into nationals, definitely my goal is to be a national champion, but I put more thought into the fact that okay, we have a team race to win, and I need to win that team race. And if you recall that year, it was a very very close team race. Ohio State had an incredible team. Um, and it ended up coming down to Bo Nickel and Miles Martin in the finals. And I'll remind everyone, I got pinned in the first round of nationals that year. And so I'm thinking coming off that match, I'm like, dang, like I'm not going to be the reason that we that we lose this national championship. So I had a lot of wrestling to do in that national championship, but I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. That was definitely a defining moment for me.
Yes. And you came back and took fifth. Well, you must have
Yeah.
won 5 or 6 matches probably in that
Yeah,
tournament.
it was. I wrestled. I think it's 8 matches total, something like that. So I ended up winning 6 matches. I lost to Ryan Deal in the first round, and then in the Conci semifinals, I lost to Jaden Ironman.
Okay. And won six around that, which is Pretty impressive.
6'6" around that. Yeah, and a lot of good wrestlers. A lot of them were 2-point matches, stuff like that. So I know people think whenever they think of my wrestling, they think of like a lot of takedowns and stuff. But man, that national championships, there's a lot of close matches. So
And everybody points to Bo winning, which in the end he
yeah,
did. But I mean, winning it for the team. But and you lose one of those matches, and I don't know the math and
that's
exactly where it ended up. But definitely if you lose before the All American round, Ohio State wins.
that's correct. Yeah, for team championships, it takes every single person, whether you're on the backside or the front side. If you want to win national championships, um, your guys on the backside need to win out. That's how you do it. And so, me losing that first round, I knew I had a job to do. So it's a lot of work though. I think I was the sorest after that tournament than I've ever been in my entire life, and I don't think I got sore again for like 2 years.
Oh, that's fantastic. And speaking of 2 years later, right now we fast forward to you and
Yeah,
Luke Pletcher go back and forth, and you're
yeah.
the clear 1 and 2s in the country, and then boom, like
COVID.
COVID hits, and I'm sure right around that time after COVID and everything. But Vincenzo came on, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we were gonna win. I know I had a good thing. We were gonna win. We were gonna win."
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
we were gonna win.
I'm sure you do. Like, and I'm sure you thought and I'm sure Luke thought he was gonna win. But
Yeah.
that aside, just take me through. We don't go in a lot of detail either, but just like the rug being pulled out, that whole thing, and how you dealt with that, because you're gearing up to get revenge from Big Tens and help Penn State overtake Iowa, and what seems improbable. Um, what was that experience like for you? Whatever, a week before, a couple days
Sure.
before.
Yeah, I mean, it was about a week before. It was actually the day that they canceled everything was my birthday.
Oh
It was
no!
so that's how I remember it. Yeah, it was a wild day. So I think there's a couple ways to look at it. Obviously, it's disappointing for a lot of reasons, right? But at the end of the day, I ended up looking at it as kind of a blessing and a reminder, right? You can't take anything in this world for granted. A lot of college athletes, right? The struggle that you go through every day is, getting better at a sport, and that is such a blessing versus a lot of people go through struggles of am I going to get food to eat today, or am I going to die of disease today? And so it's a reminder that you can't take the lives that we live for granted. And I think that was a good reminder for us to say to pull back and say what are the things that are really important in life. It's your family, it's your community, it's the relationships that you build. And so I think that was my takeaway from it. Maybe I didn't look at it like that initially, but I think that that stuff is never too far. So it was rough, but you got to find the blessings in that kind of thing.
That's amazing perspective, and that like
Yeah,
that hits home with me, and I love it. And it's a yeah, what could go wrong? I could get hit by a car. My kid something could happen.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
do, were you able to have that perspective right away? That first day? Did it take a week? Did it take a month?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that you kind of touch on it every once in a while, right? Because we talk a lot about that kind of thing, in our room. Gratitude, obviously, it's the
Yeah,
buzzword these days. But it's never. I think for most people at the start, it was just kind of confusing, right? And I don't know, whether you're religious or not, it's like, well, what does this mean? This is kind of wild. And then obviously there's a lot of details you could go into that are political, and I won't get into those, but it's kind of confusing at the start, and so you go back and forth with different emotions and stuff like that. um and then I think you kind of landed on, whatever your takeaway was going to be, probably, a few months after that. And obviously there's a lot of discussion on it. We're still discussing
yeah.
the COVID pandemic now, and, athletic circles and political circles. I mean, it's a discussion that's going to continue. So I think that you once again find the blessings in it, and then um, you go from there.
Sure. Um, we know the rest of the story, right? You go on, you win a couple titles, and you look
Yep.
phenomenal. Transition to freestyle. Really saw you jump levels. Where I saw it was at the Olympic trials, right? You beat
Yeah.
Zayn, you beat Yanni, I have one or the other in that order, I think. Really impressive performance, right? And we jump to this year, right? I mean, the U.S. Open, and well, I guess let's get this. We're gonna watch this match with Joey
Sure.
McKenna. We have talked about it. Had I assume you have, but I really don't know the answer. I don't know my history well enough. Had you wrestled? Have you have a history with Joey? I gotta assume you guys hit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
We trained together when we were kids. But we've wrestled every year in college, just about. Um, he left college and then I had Pletcher, but we wrestled
yeah,
my freshman year. He beat me in the duel, and then he beat me, or yeah, he beat me in the duel and then beat me at the Big Tens. And then I beat him in the duel the next year. And then he beat me at nationals the next year. And so we wrestled a bunch of times. I mean, um, and I'm sure we'll wrestle again. So
yeah. Cool. And we can Nick or Nico, excuse me, producer. You can let this one roll. We'll just kind of talk through it. But I guess do you come, guy that you're this familiar with? I
yeah,
don't know if game plan is the right word, but is there a game plan or like be aware of these things? How do you
sure.
approach 10 matches into it and five, however many?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things, and you'll see it right at the start here, Joey has that dump, right? And that's actually, a variation of fireman's carry, which is what a lot of people know me for. So, like I said, we wrestled as kids. We kind of, both have that little skill. But yeah, I mean, he's has incredible offense on his feet. He's great parterre, and so you kind of have to just be aware of, what people are good at, while balancing wrestling in your own positions and getting to your own offense. And I think being patient is important, right? Don't get excited. But yeah, I mean, Joey's definitely, in my opinion, one of the best wrestlers in the world. So
Yeah. Uh, I think I know the answer, but like, what if anything does getting takedown in the first 5, 10 seconds do to you?
well, it's not great, right? It's you give up a few points and you're like, well, shoot, I gotta, I'm starting off two down, which is never good, right? So
Yeah,
especially with he has that little dump in. It's almost like a little cheap tilt, right? It's 2 points instantly, um and there's not much you can do about it. So, but that's part of the sport, right? Is you just got to be patient and trust that you can, have plenty of time to score points. It's a 6 minute match. It's not, 30 seconds. So you got time. You just got to make it happen and stay relaxed and, stick to whatever game plan that you have.
sure. That second score.
Yeah.
Would you rather give up some ground and get and essentially not? I don't think you'd let him push you out, but would you rather get
Yeah.
caution of one rather than maybe get a takedown? Give up.
Yeah, if it's hard to say. I think, with freestyle, there's a lot of, well, the first day it didn't seem like there was any caution ones. And then the second day, I felt like they called caution one like multiple times every match. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean, um, folk style, you can keep wrestling in these situations versus freestyle. It's like, okay, well, I might give up four here if I, you know, don't just kind of stay relaxed and try to defend outward. So, I mean, um, caution one is definitely not the worst thing in the world if you don't have any cautions yet. And the alternative is two or in a lot of these situations, even four. And you see, I almost stepped in to go for my throw there, but
Double overs.
like I said, we trained as kids, so Joey. While people may not think of Joey at having upper body, he definitely has upper body skills.
Yeah. Now that we talked about giving up two at the start, but
Yeah.
now being down 5-0 with 30 seconds left, it not panic, but maybe a little bit more sense of urgency is there, or just no, I'm cool,
Um.
calm.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely time to start scoring, right? For sure. Um, freestyle is interesting though because while you can go down by five quickly, you can recover quickly as well. I mean, it's a game of quick scoring, right? And freestyle. Someone on our team this in Vegas was like, freestyle is like arcade mode, right? You can score really quick, and versus um, with folk style, sometimes it's a little bit slower.
Yeah, I would agree. That almost give two. I think they gave two, but took it away. I don't know if it ever got confirmed, but um,
Yeah.
either way, it wasn't given. This is an age-old debate. We don't have to get deep into it, but since we got 30 seconds,
Sure.
what do you like better? Maybe as a wrestler, or maybe two things, right? To wrestle and as a
Yeah.
fan.
Um, it's hard to say. I like both styles. I'll tell you, I really enjoy folk style top bottom wrestling. It's fun. I really enjoy it. It's like a whole different set of skills that you develop. And so I tend to side with Shane Sparks a little bit in that I don't want to do anything to it. I keep it. It's, people work their whole lives with those skills, and it's fun, man. It's a different type of wrestling. And then freestyle on the other side is also a lot of fun. So I enjoy both. I can't pick a favorite.
Sure. Well, we can debate that all day, but
Sure.
what is did the coaches say something at the break? You think something at the break? Like there's a clear difference between you and these
Yeah.
periods, or is it just man? That's just how it happened.
Well, it's I'm down 5-0, so it's time to go score, right?
Yeah.
There's really no other option. Um, so I think just having an offensive mindset going into this period is important. You got to hope everyone's in really good shape at this level, but you kind of have to, hope that your training, um, is going to make conditioning a factor in the second period. I don't know if it was or not, but I mean, Joey still has dangerous shots here, but I think just having an offensive mindset in the second period, being down five is important, right?
Yeah. Did you feel anything different from him? Well, so you don't know whether or not it's conditioning, so maybe you don't have, just maybe he was attacking less, or felt like he was more defensive or anything.
Um, I think that he was a little more defensive. After I scored that first takedown in turn, he's taken another shot here. So I think he knows that, the for wrestling, it's never a good idea to go full defense. You want to try to keep scoring. And he almost scores a couple of times here in this second period, right? So he's continuing to wrestle. And we're getting into these scramble positions that are, huge. This is a position you see, this far ankle scramble. You see this in folk style.
Hmm.
You hardly see this in freestyle, really, but um, it's an important position to wrestle in. And obviously, you go about the position a little bit differently in folk style and freestyle, with exposure and all that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of tell, right? He wants to score again, and I'm also trying to score. So you have two guys going full offense, and that can create a lot of scoring opportunities for both guys. So, and then you see the snap down here. So,
Yeah, really nice, like direction change, right? It was one way, the other, one way,
yeah,
and then it worked. And then and
a rough
and
lace.
however you get it done,
Yeah.
right? Rough, simple, whatever. It's 2 points.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Is there a mentality shift here? Like, okay, now I got the lead, or is there at least that, or is it like just like head down, go to work?
Yeah, I mean, it's always head down, go to work, but you get a lead, it's time to protect the lead a little bit, right? I mean, you don't want to make dumb decisions. I've been on, um, I've had the lead before in a tough match, and made poor decisions, and given that up. So, it's not always buzzsaw. Sometimes it is, hey, it's time to make sure that we win this match.
And that was an example, right? I was just like patient and scoring off of
Hmm.
his shot instead of taking like unneeded attacks. And what a freaking second period, man.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fun sport, man. Matches like that are they're a lot of fun. So
Yeah. So great job there. I failed to mention. I want to back up one round. We don't have to pick the
sure.
match apart, but like wrestling Bo Bartlett, he's a teammate.
Yeah.
Um, Crazy match. I think he scored first. He might have been up
Hmm.
4-0 or something, but whatever.
Yeah.
10-10 at the end. Everybody I think most people know, they raise his hand. Did you know the scenario about criteria while you're wrestling? It's probably hard to keep track. It's hard to keep track while I'm commentating. They rose Bo's hand where you're like, ah, dang it, I lost. Or you're like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't think I
Well,
lost. I think I messed up.
I have a little bit of a complaint here because I mean they were not vocalizing the calls, right? I had no idea that anybody had a caution. I think that so Bo had a caution, and what ended up happening was they called a caution on Bo, and the volunteers or whoever's working the table put the caution on me, and so that's why it showed up criteria for Bo, and so they ended up making that call, right?
Uh
And
huh.
so afterwards, the scorecard is correct. The call on the mat's just incorrect, right? Now, they'd never vocalized this call. And so I had no idea there was even a caution on the board for anybody.
Uh huh.
And so I'm just looking at the score on the board. And, it's also a weird situation where it's, you're wrestling your teammate. So, uh, your our coaches aren't necessarily pulling for anybody specifically. And so, if you want to challenge a call, you
It's
need to
on you.
challenge it yourself. And I'm not the best at keeping track of that stuff in the match. A lot of times the coaches keep an eye out for that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just a little sloppy on the side of the referees and stuff like that. But I don't know if it was the referees, the table workers. I don't want to call anybody out,
Yeah.
but I think the vocalizing that stuff could have been done a little bit better.
So you didn't know, like when they raised his
No,
hand, you were
I
like,
thought
I
I
guess I
had
lost.
lost. I thought I had lost. And then I'm about halfway out the door to go cut my weight, and they're like, "Hey, they made a mistake or whatever." And I was like, "What the heck?" And so I had no idea there was even a caution on the board. I mean, I know I was, I had been pretty offensive and um, walked out of bounds a couple of times with them, and so I know I had those. But yeah, I mean, I had never heard the caution vocalized or called, so I didn't even know it was there.
I mean, describe to me that feeling, right? One, it's your teammate, so maybe, I mean, you're still got to be happy, right? Like, oh, I am in the finals. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's nice. But it's not great to, have the feeling of losing before that, and it's a close match. So I guess there's mixed emotions there, but I think, the best thing to talk about is, hey man, like we got some really good guys at 141, 65 kilograms at Penn State. And you got another guy around that weight, Shane Van Ness, that's coming up. And you saw Bo and Shane at the Nationals this past year. Both of them ranked kind of low and coming away, taking third place. We've got loaded skill at this weight class, and each weight class around this weight class. So I think it's a testament to the coaching of Cody Sanderson and now Jimmy Kennedy on the staff as well. So you don't like to lose or wrestle teammates, but it's really exciting, having that level of skill all in the same room.
You guys got a lot of skill at a lot of levels at a lot of weights.
Yeah, yeah, we do.
Let's be real, top to bottom.
Yeah,
Uh, to that, like, where have you grown the most as a wrestler? In wow, how
yeah,
long you been there? 5, 6, however many years. Um,
yeah.
where have you improved the most physically, mentally, tactically, whatever? Where do you ever want to say?
All of the above. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a room. I don't even know how many gold medals are in there. A lot, Olympic gold medals. That is.
4 or 5.
Obviously,
Yeah.
there's tons and tons of national championships and stuff too. But every day I learn something, whether it's a technique or a little mental tidbit. I think that something that people focus on whenever they talk about Penn State is the mentality, right? I don't think there's any secrets there. We're just focus on the right things, gratitude and all that, and focus on scoring points, right? And then tactically, technically, everyone's going to have their unique system, but I really think the stuff that we have rolling with us at Penn State is really good stuff. It's really, even though people might not think that my wrestling has changed from high school to now, to me, it's like I'm a completely different wrestler. It feels like. Um, I've taken so much from each of my coaches and made it my own. Um, so to me, it's like I'm a completely different person from start to. I'm not finished yet, but maybe soon.
President. Start to president. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Speaking of, well, not speaking of anything, but next thing is Yanni, right?
yeah,
And I'm curious, and he's a unique guy with a unique style, a unique skill set,
extremely.
right? He offers whatever you want to call it, a lot of unique and really good things about him. How do you know, I can't imagine just doing what you do every day. I
Yeah,
assume there has to be, hey man, we got to focus. Now it's like a UFC fight, right? We got 3 months
yeah,
or 2 months of like this guy, you know.
yeah,
Not gonna give me all this details, but like give me a glimpse behind the curtain of like, yeah, we
sure.
will kind of get ready for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, so that's step number one. You just said it. It's you have a lot of time to prepare for one guy, and that goes both ways. And so we're talking more, like UFC kind of thing, and so that's really exciting for the fans. I think they're going to see some really high level wrestling at every weight class. And then in terms of preparation, right, with wrestling, it's always the same in that what you do good is not going to change. You're not going to become a master at a new technique in a few months, maybe in a year, but not in a few months. And so you need to continue to, I think, focus on what you do well and play into your strengths. And then while understanding that the whoever your opponent is, for me, Yanni, world silver medalist, obviously, and four-time national champion now, that he's going to have things that he does extremely well, including being a master of all the basics. Right, you don't become a four-time national champion without mastering all the basics. So I think playing into my strengths and continuing to train hard and do the things that I do well is important. And then we'll obviously he has things that he does well that I'm going to be aware of and prepare for. And I would think that the same will be true vice versa.
Yeah, June 10th, Prudential Center. I can't wait. It's gonna be that match and 9 other freestyle matches and 20 other
Yeah,
women's and
there's
Greco.
a lot
So
of good matches, man.
yeah, yeah, and they're all going at the same time. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
madhouse, but
and
super
a lot
excited.
of NLWC guys as well.
You guys cleaned up, and yeah, you guys, you're gonna see some blue on blue crime a little bit. Like
Yeah, my
Kyle
least
and
favorite thing, but
Nolf, and yeah, but
it's exciting.
yeah, for you guys, it's got to be. Okay, super excited about them. Last thing I want to talk about is Joaquinian.
Sure.
Did I say it right?
Yes. Yeah.
Hit me.
Wakinian, Wakia. It's a company I started. We do athleisure fitness apparel. You go to wakia.store, WAKINYAN.store. The link is in my bio on all my socials. Nickley underscore PSU on Instagram, Nickley141 on Twitter. Check it out. We have, really high quality products that you'll enjoy, that you'll love. We're actually running a summer discount right now. It's 10% automatically applied. So check that out. I would appreciate it.
Yeah. So just why'd you want to start a business? Why did you want to start this
Sure.
business? Yeah.
Well, so Wakia in Native American mythology is a thunder spirit, right? And so to me, it kind of symbolizes, your own personal power and conviction, and that's been a big part about my journey. And so I wanted to share that in some way while also making a living. And so it kind of became, a fitness apparel brand. Athleisure and fitness apparel is something I've spent almost every waking moment in my entire life, being a wrestler. I think a lot of wrestlers and athletes can relate, and so I think it's something that I know at least a little bit about. And it's been an interesting journey. I had never started a company or been involved in the fashion industry at all. So it's been really cool. I've learned a lot, and I think we are doing a lot of things really well. And so it's just online right now, online business. But I obviously I have a lot of of connections, with Penn State and just with wrestling, and a lot of people that have helped me out. But it's really cool. I want people to, one, be empowered through kind of the message, which is personal power to reach your goals within yourself, and then also we have extremely high quality products that we've gotten incredible feedback on. So and it's doesn't our leggings are not 100 and whatever dollars like some brands. They're $45 to $35. So check them out. We have women's and men's stuff. So
Cool. And just give me one lesson you learned, or one you've never been in business before. You got in
yeah,
business. There's going to be 100 obstacles that you never saw coming at you.
yeah.
What's one thing you're like, oh, didn't see this, and something you had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, well, you just said it. There are a lot of little obstacles that jump in your way whenever you're doing something you've never done before, specifically in business. And so I think what makes people turn their backs on whatever they're trying to do a lot is that you have this little obstacle, and it's a strange obstacle that you've never seen before until you say, I don't know anything about this. I think I'm good. Well, if you just put in a day or an hour and do research and read and reach out to people and um, use your resources, it ends up being you ends up overcoming it, and a lot of times it's easier than you thought. And then wrestling is life, right? It's the same thing in wrestling. So you have these little obstacles, just put in the time, head down, work hard, chop wood, carry water, right? It's you just kind of stick with it, and eventually you overcome these little obstacles. And then the big obstacles are less prevalent than people might think.
Couldn't truer words haven't been spoken. I installed a dishwasher last night for the first time, and I watched how many YouTube videos and this and that, and then I got there, and of course these things weren't in the video. How do I? And I had to phone a friend. I had to FaceTime somebody and figure it out. And I I was almost like, I'm just gonna call somebody and have them do this. But I was really glad I didn't. So as you're saying
Save
that, I'm
some
like,
money.
dude, yeah, and learn something for next time. So,
Yes.
awesome. That was my little anecdote, but it applies to what you said. So, Nick, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a joy talking with you. We could, I'm sure, sit down for an hour, 2 more hours, and keep going. But we all got lives to live. But I want to give you the final word to say anything about anything.
Sure, man. Yeah, check out my company again. That's wakia.store, WAKINYAN.store. Check me out on the socials. We talked kind of a lot about my past wrestling and everything, but if anything, I just hope that guys, you don't have to live in Pennsylvania or have a four-time state champ as your coach to be a great wrestler, right? You just got to have wrestling shoes and a wrestling mat, and sometimes not even those. So we live in a time right now where wrestling is a lot of fun, but the lessons that you learn are going to take you much farther. And so we need more wrestlers and people that have that mindset out in the world right now. And so be brave, go do cool things. It's a time of many challenges, but also many opportunities.
Fantastic message, Nick. I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story with us, and best of luck out in Jersey at Final X. I'll see you there.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day. Okay, folks, man, great show, great guest, great interview. Let's do it again. Thanks so much to Nick Lee for joining us. That'll do it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next time.